Hi, good evening. Ravi's put me under a lot of pressure, as they say. But anyway, the blame is on them. If they don't give stories, you can start demanding story or whatever. It's up to you. Firstly, welcome everyone for the launch of this quite extraordinary book. You don't usually have Indian cricket administrators write books that are colorful, that are telling stories in a way, and yet being respectful and maintaining certain privacy. So one of Anil's friends was saying, look, I've known him for 25 years and I still don't know dressing room secrets. So I think this is the time we've got to test it now. Pitch side, Amrit's book it's a tour diary in parts. It's also a story of his experiences through cricket, both starting out as a child, as a cricket player, as a fan of cricket, and also a snapshot. It's like a photo album of a very special period in Indian cricket where there were massive changes taking place at a rapid sort of a speed. And I know that everyone thinks that speed is a word that only the IPL has invented, but there are changes that have happened between, say, 1990, from when Anil started playing, and almost 20 years after that, that both Anil and Amrit were witness to. I've known both of them for about as long as I've worked, been treated with sort of distance, respect, a certain degree of sort of friendship as well. And because as journalists, you're trying to get the story, but you're trying not to sort of spoil your sort of equation with the person. But this I have to say, and at this point, this will be the only subversive thing said in the House, and I'll be the only one allowed to say it, is that were these two gentlemen who are sitting on my left, were they in charge or in the board in any form, you would have World Cup tickets and the schedule sorted out much before than it already has. I can say that with absolute confidence. So Amrit, you came into cricket by accident, pure accident. Tell us about it. You were a cricket player yourself. You came into it by accident. What got you into this? Because your stories are incredible. I mean, I'm not being a pitch for the book, but I am. It's got some fantastic stories in there.
Sachi hai, kahaniyan hai, but sachi hai.
So tell us what got you into thinking about writing a book and looking back at your experiences in cricket.
I think before I answer that, I want to react to what Ravi said in the beginning, that you can't bowl as well as Anil. You can't take those 1,000 wickets in international cricket. Maybe more if there was DRS. So usko chodo. When he also mentioned about me and how I've had a good life in terms of cricket association and what others need to do, I want to tell him that it's very easy to be a cricket administrator. You don't require much skill. You only require some luck to be there and get a chance. So it's not difficult. I don't think I've done anything special. I just happened to be lucky to get there, and I want to answer your question now. For me, it was an accident. It was not meant to be. My life was, I joined the government as a normal officer. Before that, played cricket in college. Ram is here. We played cricket together for St. Stephen's. But that was college cricket. I joined service and happened to meet Mr. Scindia. And he put me in a position that gave me access to the BCCI and cricket. So I actually lucked out. And it was by accident, as you said. And Mr. Scindia actually gifted me a cricket credit card with lifelong validity. And even after so many years, I'm still using it.
What made you want to write this book?
Listen,
I must tell you something. During every tour Amrit went on, he kept a diary. So it's not like he just remembers things and then embellishes them as our memories, as we sometimes do. But he actually has a diary of things that happened.
Yeah, but I've thought for a long time about writing, but I had doubts, I had uncertainty. Would people be interested in knowing what somebody on the periphery has to say? And I realized I have no gyan to give. I'm no expert. There's no breaking news which I can announce. There is no message which the nation might want to know from me. So I was thinking about it and it didn't really work. Then I realized that I've been fortunate in terms of being close to iconic moments of Indian cricket, close to players, events, And I thought I have a perspective which I should put out for people to, just look at. And for instance, it was mentioned that Sachin was the first person declared out through the television thing. I was there. I was there when Anil took those 10 wickets at Kotla. Also at Lords, when Saurav did what he did, and that's inspired Salman Khan for the next 20 years, and he's still doing it. Also, in 2003 at the World Cup, when Sachin made that epic 90 odd, and we won at Centurion. 2004 Pakistan, Viru at Multan, our first ever win in the Test matches and one days. Rahul making 278 pindi. So many, important matches, important events. So I ultimately decided to write it.
And Anil, now we're looking at sort of 30 years of a career. You yourself also grew up through cricket from the age of 18 till 38 when you played for India, then you retired. What was your experience going into Indian cricket in 1992 on that tour, which was a new place, a completely new experience? There was not that much television. Nobody knew anything about it. What are the fun stories that you can tell us?
Yeah, good evening.
You need to reveal all the secrets now.
No, but I never kept a diary, Amrit, so my memory isn't great. So I'll restrict my stories to how Amrit was, and for me, 92 tour of South Africa obviously was something we all look forward to. Nobody had ever gone to South Africa, and when we first went there, we had a motorcade. I remember the motorcade. We landed in Durban, and there was a motorcade from the airport right to, I think it was Maharani Hotel. Yeah. Maharani.
Now Ilangeni.
Yeah, Ilangeni. Now Ilangeni. Yeah. So right until there, so I had W.V. Raman as my partner in the car, open car, and where people lined up on the streets welcoming the Indian team. It was fantastic. I mean, it was nice to sort of be welcomed like that, but obviously we didn't get that kind of a welcome on the pitch. It was quite a tough series for us. But that was one. The second was, of course, the first time we met Amrit as a manager. You could call Amrit by his first name rather than calling sir all the time. We were sort of, although it was my second major tour with the Indian team, addressing a manager by his first name was nice for a change, and then having a manager with a T-shirt on and a trouser or a shorts was always nice. It was a welcome change. And in terms of the South African tour itself, I'm sure Amrit will possibly mention that. He's mentioned that in the book, where I think literally every second day we were at an official function, official dinner, where we were all in our formals and were asked to sit along 9 strangers on a table and discuss, I don't know what, I mean, other than cricket. We spoke everything else. And it was quite challenging because you would play the match, end of the day, you come back and Amrit would tell all of us in the bus saying, listen guys, we are going for this reception. All of you need to come in your suits. And we would go sit there, and then the food wasn't obviously not much special for me. I'm a vegetarian, so I had challenges with the food, and that was what I remember outside of course the cricket that we played. But it was a fascinating series for us, and it was nice to have Amrit on the tour.
So I'll just explain to India still doesn't have a team manager, like a fixed position that one person has, so he looks after that. It had started and then it stopped, and it's gone back to this manager per test or manager per series. But because South Africa was such an important series, they sent sort of a non-BCCI-ish kind of a person when you went on the tour. What was that like being? Because at that time the Indian passport didn't allow you to travel to South Africa.
Massive political context for the tour. India, as you said, didn't recognize South Africa as a nation. Our passports were stamped not valid for Israel and South Africa. So you were going into unknown territory, and nobody knew anything, even from the cricket perspective, because there was no idea about matches, players, venues, pitches. I think Ravi had played with some people in county cricket when he was with Glamorgan. But apart from that, it was like a cricket blackout. We knew nothing. And I remember this first meeting where somebody got up and asked, "Ye Kepler kaun hai?" You know, Kepler had already played for Wessels, had already played for Australia and made 100 in tests or something. But "Ye Kepler kaun hai?" And we were a total group of 17, 14 team members. Ajit Wadekar as the coach, I was manager, and we had Dr. Ali Irani, who was assistant manager, physio, trainer, you name it, everything else. And it was such strange times that I was told as manager to go and decide the playing conditions. Nothing, there was no negotiation, discussion between India and South Africa. And playing conditions were not sorted. In fact, Ajit was not in great physical shape, so often Ali and I would be helping with the fielding drills. Now, we have an Indian team which goes with a support staff of 20. You know, so this is how different the things were. As manager, I found it a bit strange in the beginning. I was roughly the same age as Kapil Dev. And when we landed in Harare before we reached South Africa, some guys came looking for the manager. And they were always looking for somebody, older, till Kapil, sort of brought them to me and said, "Ye hai hamare manager." But soon I realized that manager's job is not difficult, but at times, for me it was embarrassing because you are leader of the delegation. In terms of protocol, you come first. I, as manager, would get a suite in a hotel where players are sharing a room. So it looked a bit odd to me that Ajit Wadekar is coach with me, but in terms of protocol, in terms of representing BCCI, etc., I took precedence. So very often I'd offer that suite to Ajit, said, "Sir, mere ko zarurat nahi hai, aap, use it." But I found it a bit odd. Another thing which was very strange, end of the tour, I'm supposed to write a report on everybody. Can you imagine? I have to write a report on how well behaved Anil is, or whether he's disciplined, does he come for practice on time? And I had to do this for Kapil Dev, Azharuddin, Ravi Shastri. So end of the tour, I wrote some general things, because you had to submit a report. But it shouldn't have bothered me because nobody reads them. So it didn't really matter.
But in fact, Amrit, we helped a few managers write those reports.
Yes. Listen,
you were one who wrote your own report.
Listen, I must point out that Anil was always a very helpful member of the team. We have this thing of autograph sheets where the team's names are sort of printed and everybody signs in front. So you have to sign hundreds of autograph sheets. So that becomes a problem. So Anil has this huge talent that he could sign for many. So
No,
today,
don't disclose this now. Now this has become public knowledge.
In public, yeah.
Yeah.
So in fact, before this, when we were talking, just Sharda was taking us through this, how are we going to do this? So Anil offered that in case somebody is missing a Sachin autograph, he's willing to do it after the event.
Yeah, but only today. No, but all Sachin's autograph is his. Okay, genuinely, it's not mine.
I think even he can't make out the ones you've written.
So how many of those could you sign? You can
No,
tell
it
me.
was-
It's
it
a
was-
small gathering. It's just us and friends. You can tell us.
Yeah, I know, with some cameras around. Yeah. No, we would sign literally 100, 200
Hundreds, yeah.
sheets. And some of the sheets would miss out on a few players, and that's when the manager would come down and say, "Listen, we have missed out on 1 or 2 autographs. Can you help out?" So yeah, you just try and
Multi-talented. I
you
bet you didn't know
you
this.
try and help him out.
So now you know how valuable he was to the team.
So, more seriously, Amrit, when you met Anil for the first time, what were your first impressions? He used to wear those very big glasses. He was very quiet. Other than appealing, he still has a very quiet, sober, sort of baritone voice, other than appealing. But what did you make of him when you
Listen,
came across?
from 92 now, 31 years, 32 years, one thing that's been consistent about Anil is his enormous dignity. There's no drama about Anil. No? I wish sometimes he would, like others who are more emotionally explosive, sledge players, maybe curse after he's taken 5 wickets instead of celebrating
Fist
in a
pumping
nice
him.
manner. Do whatever. So there's no drama about him. Secondly, in terms of, consistent excellence there. His record is for everybody to know. And I think for any youngster playing cricket, if you can just cut, copy, paste Anil, you'll be fine.
No, but not all of that is true, because it's not that I did not.
Listen, I'm supposed to say good things.
No, you are. No, but I'll also say good things about you. No, but it's not about, telling the batsman what you think of him, not necessarily in the open, but I also used to do it subtly when he's closer to you rather than when he's away that far. So which none of the cameras could catch. And
Or the sound mics.
Yeah.
No sound mics.
No. Even if you had sound bites, you wouldn't hear, because he was literally next to me, and you didn't have to.
But are you good in Punjabi in terms of expressing yourself?
No, I was with Punjab team for 3 years. So even before that, you knew exactly what the Punjabi words were. But that was one. And in fact, I made a comment later on when I was captain, where for 17 years I literally didn't visit a match referee's room. But as soon as I became captain, I was in the match referee's room every single time, trying to defend another player in the team. So in fact, I told one of my players that, look, irrespective of what you think, even if I curse a batsman and the umpire complains to the match referee saying Anil has said something, the match referee won't believe me. But if you say good morning, he's going to call you, because that's the kind of image that you have created. So you need to be very clear about what you want to say.
Very careful.
Very careful in what you say. So yeah, Amrit is right in terms of not showing. I don't think I think we sort of confuse aggression with what you show and what you showcase on the field, but it's not necessary that you need to say something to be aggressive.
Yeah. There's another thing which I want to add is the enormous respect Anil had from cricketers, whether seniors, his colleagues and others. I'll give you 2-3 examples. On various tours, Saurav was the captain on most of these tours, and he would always be under huge stress when it came to Anil and the choice between the spinners. And he was actually very respectful, and it was a very tough decision for him. I remember Gautam Gambhir telling me that how much he owes Anil in terms of the support he received when he was beginning and still not sure of his place in the team. One more example. We were in England, and there was this Wisden Awards function where we went. I think it was a rainy, dark, gloomy day in England. We traveled a long way to Crystal Palace.
I think it was Crystal Palace.
Crystal Palace. And there was this one category of the best bowling performance of, I think, decade or century or something, which Anil did not get. So this shocked a lot of people, and Sachin was the one who was quite outraged. He said, what does Anil have to do? Does he have to take 11 wickets in an innings to win this?
No, I don't want to put a friend of mine who's in the room under the spotlight. Suresh is a part of
Suresh.
Suresh is a part of Wisden. I don't know whether he was a part of Wisden at that point in time. But
maybe he can tell us now what went into the decision.
No, this was, of course, it was one of those Wisden events where we celebrated.
Did those things matter to you, or did you get annoyed by
it? It was just one of those things where I think Sachin did make a remark after the event.
Yeah.
So there's a great sort of quote from when so Saurav and Anil retired after the same test match, and so I called Sachin Tendulkar up to say, can I get some statement from you, like a sort of tribute to both of them, and then it was carried in India Today, who I worked for, under Sachin Tendulkar's byline. It was hilarious. The writer has scored more than 10,000 test runs was at the bottom. It was too much. I loved it. But Sachin's I thought his best quote that he gave me, he said, I remember, so give me 15 seconds to say this. I remember what he meant to me when I was captain. If something was happening, I would give the ball to Anil. If nothing was happening, I would give the ball to Anil. If you needed to contain runs, you give the ball to Anil. If you needed to attack, you give the ball to Anil. So that's the kind of... Now Anil, that we've sort of softened you nicely by giving you little half volleys. What's the meanest thing you ever said under your breath to a batsman?
Say it loudly now.
No, I don't remember, because I've probably have said quite a few things to the batters.
Listen,
a range of meanness you can.
He's become Gajni now.
No, I mean it's all about trying to compete and trying to get his wicket, and you'll do whatever it takes within the rules to do that. So I don't think I would stop and hesitate in saying something if I had to.
So the story about Anil being a competitor and being on the field, and he was most annoyed, not annoyed, he was just like, what is this nonsense? That KF and Yuvraj say they used to hate fielding in the inner circle when Anil was bowling, because even if the ball was 20 feet away, he wanted them to stop it. He said they just had to do it. He said we didn't want to look at him because he just be so angry with us. He said that was not a single. For him, nothing was a single. Is that true?
Laxman's here. No, it's about bowling 6 balls at one batter, and that's all you wanted to do. If you felt that there was a run that to be stopped, although I was probably the least athletic in the team, but I would expect everybody else to be Superman. So that's what you want when you're bowling. You want people to stop the runs, and so that the pressure remains on the batter.
So the South Africa tour was extraordinary in its own way. And then in 1996, when India held the World Cup along with Pakistan and Sri Lanka, Amrit was in charge of this committee called PILCOM, Pakistan, India, Lanka Organizing Committee.
I was one of the 4 from India.
Yeah. And so he was there sort of organizing this very complex, at the time, this is 96, there's not so much internet, you're dealing with faxes, I suppose. And you're trying to get these 3 countries to organize this cricket tournament. But I'm sure it was far simpler at this point in time than it appears to be now. Tell us what that experience was like, working with 3 different boards, 3 different peoples, organizing cricket in 3 countries.
Listen, technically the 3 countries were organizing it, but it was India who was leading it. Mr. Dalmia was leading it. Sri Lanka was like a sleeping partner. Pakistan was like an inefficient, incompetent partner. We had this PILCOM for many years, and their representatives, the 4 representatives, kept changing every 4 months. Like they do now, in the last 1 year, PCB has had 4 chairmen, 1 year. There was Ehsan, Ramiz, then there was Najam Sethi, and now there's Zaka Ashraf. That's 1 year. So similarly in PILCOM, their nominees kept changing, except one constant was Ehsan. So Ehsan was, I think, closely working with this Dalmia. So it worked. India drove that entire World Cup. But there are 2 strange things about that PILCOM 1996. One was that it was awarded to these 3 countries after a long 10, 12-hour meeting at Lord's. There was this library where the delegates were sitting and deciding on whether to allot it to India or not. And the rest of us who were sort of assisting with the meeting were sitting in the long room. And one person from the Pakistan side who was also sitting with me was Imran. So late in the evening, we sort of stepped out onto the field, through the long room. And within 2 minutes, the steward came and told us to get lost. This was January, February, no cricket for another 3 months. We are barely 2 feet inside the boundary, and this is Imran Khan told to get lost. So that's one memory I have. Second memory is that, we were trying to raise money by selling the television rights. We had to make a payment to ICC, and if it didn't meet the deadline, it would have been taken away from us. There were 2 tenders put out for the World Cup television rights, and there was no buyer. We couldn't get anybody to buy the rights. Ultimately, Mark Mascarenhas stepped in. He gave a guarantee of $10 million for the World Cup. Now, $10 million in those days about 40 crores. Now, each IPL game is about 120 crores. So that's how it's traveled, the media rights.
And also there's the other story of how the South Africans came to the board for the first time to say, we want to buy rights for this series. And that's a crazy story.
Yeah, that's also interesting because, when we were to travel to South Africa, Ali Bakar called me and said, there's huge interest. We want these matches to go to everybody in South Africa, so we want to buy the rights for these, matches. No, sorry. This is about the South Africa coming to India.
For the first, their first tour in Calcutta.
3 or 4 games. And he wanted us to quote a price for those 3 games. We in the board didn't know that we owned the rights. We thought it's Doordarshan ki property. So our first thing was to confirm whether it is with us or with Doordarshan. So after a while, we knew that hamara hai. Then the issue was what price to quote. So I asked Doordarshan. They said they'd never done a deal like this. They said ask for $10,000 a game. So I was not sure whether this is right. I called Mr. Dalmia, saying, "Kya kare, sir?" He said, "Isko double kar do." वो double हो गया. Even then, I thought, $20,000 for a game. So when Ali called again, I said, Ali, why don't you quote a price? because we're totally clueless. So Ali ultimately said, can we do 30,000 a game? So I tried to act tough. I said, no, Delhi doesn't sound right. So he said, let's close it at 120. So that's how the
120?
deal got $120,000.
Per game?
No, for 3 games.
Okay.
So 3 games.
40.
Yeah. But the point is, A, the board did not know that they owned the rights. And secondly, we had no clue what to ask for.
So this is that sort of age of Indian cricket. And also another very unforeseen thing happened around that World Cup where I think for the first and unfortunately maybe the last time, a joint India-Pakistan team travelled to Colombo to play in a match to show solidarity with the Sri Lankans who had just had a very bad, very devastating bomb attack on January the 31st. And that's why Australia and West Indies says we are not touring. And then India and Pakistan decided we're going to play a solidarity match in Colombo, and man of the match is sitting here of that game. So tell us about that match, Anil. What was it like? How unreal was it that in the middle of World Cup preparation, you got to go and do this?
Yeah, it was quite tough. Obviously, we were all distraught and concerned about what had happened in Sri Lanka. But we were literally on the flight next day to travel to Sri Lanka. And as we landed, of course, there was a lot of security. And we went through the Gaul face, the road. And you could see the destruction in a few hotels. We saw the Galadari Hotel, a couple of other hotels which were totally shattered. And it was a joint India-Pakistan playing against Sri Lanka. And there was one of our players, I don't want to name. Obviously, he thought that...
Do name.
No,
Just,
no names.
Just a few friends.
No names.
Small gathering.
No names. So he possibly thought that if he said that he doesn't have a passport, he can get away from playing this game. But then Mr. Dalmia, knowing him, he said, look, don't worry. We'll go on a special permission just for a day. And they gave a letter that he had to carry. And he came on that trip. So he didn't have a choice. And the other aspect that I found on the cricket field was very sort of tough, because I was standing at mid-on and Wasim Akram was bowling. And this was the only time that I was fielding to Wasim Akram. And he was looking to rush through the overs. I mean, I know this was a one-day game, but he was looking to rush through his overs. Before I could turn, he was bowling the second ball. So he was that quick. And we know how quick he is in terms of finishing his overs, but he was possibly quicker than Jadeja on that occasion as a fast bowler. So as soon as he bowled the ball, I had to literally run back and then be ready for the next one. And those two certainly remain fresh in my memory. And of course, the great Abdul Qadir was a part of that as the manager. He came as the coach, and that was my first interaction with him post the Sharjah series.
Did you exchange any stories with him? Did he give you any tips? Did he say anything?
Yeah, of course. We spoke leg break, leg spin bowling, and all of that. But it was a great experience for us to just be there for that one day. And there was a reception after the game by the president of Sri Lanka, and then we left the next day. So it was like you said, it was in the middle of the preparations. We were here in Bangalore for the camp, and we flew straight from here. So obviously one of the players was not carrying his passport. He thought that if he said, look, I don't have my passport, so I can't make it. But he did.
Sharda, she is not telling. You tried hard.
Yeah. So no, I can't. I have journalistic ethics I cannot share. So the story about this match is terrific, because Sri Lanka was getting ready to stage the one-day World Cup. All the side screens were painted black. Now this match is happening. So this happened at the SSC. And they had to paint the side screen.
No, this was at
Premadas.
At Premadas.
And they had to paint the side screen white all over again so that they could play that one match and sort of go ahead with it. So that's sort of Pilcom. Now, Amrit, you have been. This means you are sitting. Your interaction with Indian cricket, with the Indian team. You are traveling and moving around in a dressing room full of giants. Who were great talents, who were giants of the game. What was that experience like? What were meetings like? Everyone wants to know what happens in the dressing room, so do share.
Listen, what struck me was that we had a great bunch of seniors, across, I think from 2002, 3, 4 at least. Sachin, Rahul, Anil, Viru, VVS is here. And the respect they had for each other was totally genuine. And they would take pride and they'd feel happy if somebody did well. So that was quite apparent. I think many people doesn't come across so easily to people from outside, on the outside. But that's one thing which I sort of learned. Apart from that, it was fascinating to see top professionals discuss cricket in a team meeting. You know, you're sitting there, they're all masters of their craft, pre-game, you're deciding whether the final leg to Inzamam should be fine or square. You know, your CAF telling you as the fielding group captain, like we were the batting group captain, whatever.
We are going to get you on stage.
We'll get you on stage and put you under the spotlight in a while. But there was this interesting discussion I remember where CAF is telling everybody to stand close, be at short cover and short mid wicket to cut the angle for the batsman and stop the single. So he gave a very good argued rationale for why to do that. So Viru's response to all that was, क्या फर्क पड़ता है? तू पीछे खड़ा हो, तेरे से single कौन लेगा? You know. So things like this. You know, I remember a discussion with Anil over dinner, I think on one of the tours, where he said that team meetings are good, but there should be some way of getting everybody to participate, everybody to say more, and discuss, you know, in a more focused manner. Similarly, he made this point about coaching and practice. He said it's fine to teach people technique, but you have to teach a bowler how to get a batsman out. For a batsman must know how to make runs. That's a different art. So how do you spot a weakness in a batsman? So, you know, it was fascinating to see, you know, people discuss the game, analyze the game, make suggestions. So I found that totally interesting. I just sit back, listen to them, and make notes.
No, and meetings have come a long way. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, Amrit would remember the 1992 meeting. He spoke about his room having he was in a suite because he was the manager of the on the tour. So all the players would go into his room because that was the biggest room.
Yeah.
And we would all sit on the floor, order
On the sofas.
on the sofas,
Yeah.
and it was more a very informal kind of a meeting where everyone would order because the manager was paying for it. Everybody would order their whatever they wanted to eat, and it would be a conversation around what we need to do for tomorrow, and that's how it was. And then from there to 2000 or 99, when Amrit walked into the dressing room, it was very different. Meetings were more in a proper conference room with a screen and projectors and computers, and so things have changed. And of course now it's very different.
Yeah, the thing was, initially the ones you mentioned, 1992, everybody came, had a cup of tea. I think there's an announcement about the 12 for the next day, and everybody wished each other luck, say acha karna, good luck, and go away. But I suffered as manager because I had to pay, and I didn't get an extra allowance for those for these meetings. But I think everybody sort of took some kind of delight that the manager is being punished in this manner.
So
But he's right. The meetings have come a long way. Now there are detailed discussions, there are presentations, the video analyst gets in, everybody has a say, and much more sort of complicated.
So I remember asking KF about something or the other about meeting. He said, nowadays, no eating, only meeting. So that was what his sort of response was. Could we call Laxman on stage, please? Just for a few harmless questions. So about the meetings, Laxman, Amrit was saying you were very involved in the meetings, correct? In his book, he talks about Laxman's role in the team meetings, the batting meetings.
He was a
batting
batting group captain or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's what John Wright did.
Yeah.
When John Wright became the coach and Saurav the captain, he wanted everyone to participate. As both Anil and Amrit just mentioned, that it was only the captain and the coach who would speak before, or some senior players. Like when I joined the Indian team, it was probably Anil was the vice captain, and Anil, it was Sachin as the captain, or maybe Madan Lal, or later it was Anshubhai, who used to speak. But when John came, he wanted to make sure that everyone participates, and the reason behind that is that once everyone participates, they take responsibility of what they've decided. So I was made the batting team captain. So me, Rahul, Saurav. So we used to decide as a batting group. So basically, the entire team of 15 or 16, used to divide into a bowling group and then a batting group, and then all of us together, and Kaif used to be the fielding captain, almost telling what we are supposed to do. As simple as, who will encourage and take the responsibility of, keeping the intensity in the first session, who would do that in the second session, or the third session of a test match.
I think it was wonderful of John to get that going, because it, like Laxman mentioned, it also brought in every player becoming more accountable, becoming more responsible, and also the other fact that Kaif was a junior in the lineup, but he could clearly state if I made a mistake on the field, where if I was not attentive or not in position where he could literally in the meeting point out, and that is something that I think every team requires for the development of the team and for the growth of the team, and that's something that I've thought really went well with the squad during that time.
Actually, I remember this. There were instances when, Kaif would be very frank in terms of pointing out, what somebody could have done better. And he was junior, but I think he said his thing, and it was respected. And it was taken in very good spirit, and I think that was something I found unique, that, somebody as junior can be so open, frank, candid about what he feels.
Okay, now this is a journalist question. Everyone says in India that the batsmen are the aristocrats and the bowlers are the labor class. So was there the batting and the bowling, did you guys sledge each other in meetings at some time? Come on, make some runs for us to bowl against.
Yeah, I think those kind of conversations was always about, what do you need to win a test match in the final innings. I think that's something that I think there was conversations around, especially when we traveled outside of India, because we needed to start winning those test matches, and it's not always that you can win the toss and decide what you want to do, but those conversations were always there. And it's also about, the good part about that team was, the onus was also on the batters to contribute with the bowling. So we had people like Viru, Sachin, Saurav running in and bowling and picking up those crucial wickets. And similarly, as bowlers, we also had to contribute with the bat in a partnership. And that's something that we constantly sort of egged each other with. And that I thought, especially when we toured outside of India, you needed contribution from every player, every single player. And that's something that really worked for us.
See, there's a very nice quote, but it's not a tabloid answer. Anyone who's worked in a tabloid newspaper needs something a bit more sort of masaledar. So now let us ask Laxman, now you're in the... So I've heard two stories about you on the tour of Pakistan. One of it involves a horse outside the Pearl Continental. Why don't you tell them the story of the horse?
Page number 171.
171.
Amrit sends me the book and tells to me that, see page number 171. And my daughter was amused. What are you doing on a horse?
Listen, many were amused.
Yeah. So I think it was not actually Pradeep Mandani, it was Suman, our little Suman from Bengal.
So I've given credit to Mandani for doing that.
Yeah.
My mistake.
Yeah, Suman will be upset.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it was just one of those days, and there was a good camaraderie between us and all the journalists on the tours, like it was in our playing days, and Suman was such a hard-working, photographer. Yeah. So he requested me. I mean, more than that, I remember the photograph he took when he asked me to come to Viru's room after Viru broke my record and he got to a 300. Okay. Where he cut the cake and he wanted me to be there in that photograph. So I think those were the days when we had excellent relationships with the media and the journalists and the photographers.
Did he change the horses? Did he first say black horse, white horse, black horse? What was how many horses did you get onto for the picture?
I think first it was black, and he was telling that the photograph was not good, and then he asked me to sit on a white horse. But I think Suman as
okay, let me explain this. This is Pearl Continental Hotel, the busiest place in Lahore. You have this, porch just next to the reception where there are gadis coming in, drivers, etc. And you have Laxman sitting on a black horse there. Then the photographer says, "Ye theek nahi hai, isko badlo." Then the white horse comes. So he's so helpful to Suman that he does this. Everybody else is wondering, "Ye kya ho raha hai? What is Laxman in training gear, sitting on a horse just close to the reception of the hotel?"
So there was much on that tour of Pakistan of 2004 that we'll all remember because it was just so crazy and so memorable, and it helped that the Indian team won. God knows what it have looked or felt like if we had not won, so thank you for that.
No, but listen, I want to add two things about Laxman. One, it goes much back to, I think, early the tour to Australia when Sachin made the double hundred at Sydney. So I was there and I was sitting with the Australian Cricket Board and there are main people, and there's the Prime Minister John Howard there. So I was, he was like anybody else. It's not like if the Prime Minister of India comes or somebody. They're pretty normal, casual about it. And he was sitting having his own coffee, serving himself. He told me, I've come here only to watch Laxman. He is the player we come for. So that's how the kind of regard people have for him there. And it was totally surprising for the Prime Minister to say, I've come only for Laxman.
And I remember this other story, which is sort of from the outside. This was the same in Sydney. And John Howard is walking. He's got his bodyguards on either side. And then a wicket fell and the announcement went up, the next batsman in is Laxman. John Howard started jogging, literally. And his security jogged with him because he just had to get to his seat in time. Now, coming to that Pakistan tour, Amrit, what were the sort of particularly memorable things about the victory, about what do you remember of that, the bonding in the team? There was so much security, but it's like they didn't care. They would walk out in the night and enjoy themselves.
I think first the security issue, because before the tour there was genuine concern about security.
Before we forget about your contributions as a security analyst on behalf of the BCCI.
Yeah, listen, that's another thing
Even
which
more
I think
important.
Ravi, I must complain to him. He didn't mention about my role as a security advisor to the cricket board. I think before the NatWest series, Mr. Dalmia told me and Jyoti Bajpayee, who was the treasurer, to go to England to check on the conditions in England, to check on the cricket grounds, security arrangements. And apparently England used to send a team to inspect India, so Mr. Dalmia didn't like that attitude of the English coming and checking on us. So he said, "Tum jao dekho." मैंने क्या देखें? So he said, "Go and check whether the facilities are good." I said, "Go to Lords and Oval and decide whether it's good enough." He said, "No, go." Then there was, we also made manufactured a bahana of some security threat to the Indian team. So Mr. Bajpayee and I went, and we told them we are very sort of upset and we are concerned about what could happen to the security of the Indian team. So they took us to Scotland Yard for a meeting. And I'm there with one group of experts in Scotland Yard who are telling us that everything is fine, we've done all the background checks, there's no threat, and I'm telling them, nahi kuch hai, Please convince us, tell us your plan for the Indian team, what are you doing, what arrangement is the hotel, in the bus, on the way. So this farce we had to go through. And that was England. But before Pakistan, there was a genuine concern about how things could be. And Professor Shetty, me and Yasho Vardhan Azad, who's a Home Ministry expert on security, we went to Pakistan ahead of the tour. And we sort of presented our concerns, and we were told through the highest authorities that tour hoga, jo aapko chahiye hum kar rahe hain. Whatever you want, just tell us a list, it'll be done. So after all that, the tour happened, and we went to Pakistan with extraordinary security. Let me give you a snapshot of what was the security arrangement like. Imagine MG Road. If the team is traveling, it's shut to traffic for 2 hours before. Then at every street,
Of course, MG Road knows. It happens when politicians travel here.
Okay. Anyway, I'll let that pass. But you had snipers on top of buildings. Every intersection, there was a rapid action force, armored gadi stationed. In the team bus, there are commandos. In front of the team bus, there are armored cars. Ahead of them are motorcycle sort of outriders. On top of the team, there's a helicopter. So this was the kind of security given to the team, especially in Karachi. So before the tour, people were scared of what could happen in terms of security. During the tour, we were scared at the extent of security. It's so overbearing and overwhelming. So people actually got scared कि कहीं गलत जगह आ गए, कहाँ फंस गए यार. So that was the security sort of background to the tour.
So Laxman, Amrit writes a lovely story about you and Viru in Multan. So when Viru was hitting his 100, Laxman was sitting padded up for I think 1.5 days.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us, or he'll tell you, he'll say everything. So confess.
No, obviously that was a fabulous knock from Viru. And the best thing for me was even before he played Test match cricket, he mentioned to me in Pune. After we played the first one day against Australia at Bangalore, we went for the second one in Pune, and Viru was just establishing himself in the one day team of India. And then he told Laxman, you missed being the first Indian to score a 100. I told, "Kyun yaar? मैं मारने वाला हूँ मैं." And he told that in 2001, and that came out true in 2004. And the fashion he scored, getting to 100 by hitting a 6, same 200 hitting a 6, and then even 100 he got hitting a 6. And I was so proud of him, so proud of him, and everyone, because that set the tone for the Test series. See, more than his 100, the way the entire setup was for the Test series. After we won the nail-biting one-day series, I think he beautifully set it up for us. And obviously Sachin also got a big 100. But I was so happy for him. And for someone who was not a regular opener, to score a 100 as an opener was fantastic.
Listen, there are a few things he hasn't said. Apparently,
I'm following what Anil just mentioned.
apparently Sehwag told Sakleen before the match started कि तुम 2 दिन fielding करोगे, इसमें. Then, while Sehwag was making those runs, I think VVS was after him to carry on, go beyond Hayden. He kept reminding him. I think Hayden was 380 something. In terms of the 100, the highest score.
It was after that.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, later on.
But he was actually, pushing, urging, encouraging Viru to keep carrying on. So that's something he hasn't said. But what is also not said is that in the last one day he got 100 at Lahore in that one day last
They
game.
won an exciting one-day series because.
Yeah.
So we have to supposedly stop for question and answer, but I'm going to be a little bit authoritative and continue. I just want to find out that all three of you have been in IPL auction rooms. It's a new phase of Indian cricket. It's new cricket to start with. Are there any? So Amrit has some hilarious stories to tell about his IPL auction days. So why don't you attempt?
We'll get Amrit first.
Yeah. Okay.
Listen.
Check the degree of the. Sorry, that is the.
I think when the IPL started, initially the auctions were totally unpredictable because nobody knew anything. Nobody knew about the skills of batsmen or bowlers, who's good, how good, and what kind of price to put on that player. So initially it was completely hit and miss, and mostly miss. But later on it became a bit more sort of scientific. There was, data crunching, numbers being checked, various factors coming in to decide. But despite all this sophistication, it can take you by surprise. And everybody's made mistakes in auctions because it's so dynamic, so difficult to control. And I remember one particular auction where Delhi Daredevils, we paid an exorbitant amount for a particular player. We wanted him, but we went much beyond what we wanted to pay and ended up paying a huge price. So at the end of it, somebody came to me and said, कि आपने मोटरसाइकिल के लिए मर्सिडीज के पैसे दे दिए. So we have made mistakes, and I'm sure VVS has been on various auctions, and so has Anil. They must be having maybe similar experiences.
Yeah, there was one auction experience where we had decided that we had to start from scratch of picking the squad. We had retained only one player, and then we had to pick the entire squad, and we had to choose a captain at the auction. And we had decided that we will go with an opening batsman who's an experienced international captain, and we will go for him. And I'm sure there will be other teams that would go for him as well. So obviously the money that you're going to keep or set aside for that particular player would be $1 million plus, and we had set aside that. And the auction started, and the first set of players came. Obviously one other opener, his name came up, and I just sat quiet. But hand was up. I said, no, we are not going after him. No, but he's a good player. I said, everyone's a good player, but we don't have him. We can't, because if you go after him, you'll probably lose out on $300,000-400,000 or whatever it was. And then you won't get your captain opener. Finally, we got that player because the hand was up and the bid was on. And we got that player. And then now, you have to choose the captain in the rest of the squad, which you haven't even thought of because you believe that that particular player would certainly come. And then when that particular name came up in the auction, obviously it went beyond $1 million, 1.2. We went further in the auction. And I said, you can't go further because you don't have the money to go further. So we lost that particular player, and now I've been asked, so who's the captain? I said, we'll have to wait. We need a break now. We need to go back and reconsider what we need to do. So yes, at the auction, people I know sort of have comments about why this player was picked, why this player was not picked. It's never easy. It's never easy to get what you want, and you won't get your 100% of wish list that you have. If you can get to 70, 80, you've done exceptionally well. And that's something that auction dynamics are very, very different when you're sitting there.
Any stories, Laxman?
No, I think very similar, but the biggest change is the knowledge of the owners as far as the game is concerned, and also about auction. And credit to all of them that they've understood the game, because in the first 2 years, obviously they wanted to pick players based on the superstars they were, whereas now it's more, while it's dynamic, it's more about the skill sets, and they categorize that basically, your top order, your middle order, your finishers, and again, who's good in the power play as a bowler, who bowls the middle overs and picks up wickets, and then, who's good at death, So I think it's very specific, but it can be kept simple. Sometimes I think we can complicate that, but it's a very interesting process. And I believe that a lot of teams, spend a lot of their time to pick the best side, because especially in the big auction, because you're required to pick for 3 years. And the core also, the retention policy and right to match is also very, very important, especially now with the league being so evolved. There's so many players with whom you can relate. The fan base of every franchise has become very big. So you want to retain those important players who are your core.
So what Laxman didn't say at this time, the first 2 years of the IPL, it was fantastic being a reporter, because you heard great stories about owner saying, but how can he drop a catch? So asking outraged, but how can we lose? So because it's supposed to be a business thing, that if you put in the money, you'll get the result. But this is sport, it's cricket, it works differently. Just very quickly to end, a segment of Amrit's book is about sort of players and people that he has little snapshots and pen portraits of. And amongst the players, Mansoor Ali Khan Patodi is a huge figure that obviously is full of fantastic stories. I know there are people here in the audience who will have about half a dozen stories, 2 dozen stories about Tiger Patodi. So why don't you tell one of those? And then if Anil has any memories of any stories about Tiger.
Well, Tiger was special, and we all grew up hearing stories about him. He was the Tiger, the huge aura around him. And not many of us have seen him play. I saw him play one Ranji game. There's no real footage of his great innings in Australia or in England available. But I got to know him early because of his nephew, Amir bin Jung, who was with us in college. And I got to know him. And I realized a few things. First, he was a very difficult man when it came to cricket. If you told him VVS has scored a double 100, his first reaction was, bowling kaisi thi. Next filter, wicket kaisa tha. So, difficult to please. Secondly, he was completely modest. Over many years, I tried my best to get something about his own cricket, but he would never sort of open up and say anything. I remember Raj Singh ji, who was a great friend of Tiger, telling me that Tiger was the best ever fielder in India, better than Azhar, Solkar, Surti, whoever. So next time I met Tiger, I mentioned this. I said, Tiger, Raj Bhai was saying this. So Tiger just smiled at me and said, you know Raj? I said, yeah, he's mad. So, khatam. But I think the better story is what Sunny mentioned, which is in the book, that when they were playing, not many people were familiar with Tiger. They didn't know how to address him, what to call him. And there was a Moinutala game where Tiger was captain and Sunny was in the team with other emerging young players. So the team asked Sunny to go check with Tiger about how he should be addressed. So they were playing a game, the batsman got out, there was a bit of a break. Tiger was at cover, Sunny was at mid-off. So he walked up to Tiger. Tiger was bent down tying his shoelaces. So Sunny asked him, sir, I've been told by my team to ask कि आपको कैसे बुलाएं. So apparently Tiger just finished tying his laces, looked up at Sunny, smiled and walked away. No answer. So not many people actually had that, I think maybe not freedom, but that familiarity of calling him Tiger. I think people played safe by saying Skip, Captain, Nawab Saab, whatever. But I remember one story, there was a conversation, I think in one of the tours, where everybody was discussing, great Indian players, past records, Merchant, Hazare, everybody, and Tiger's name came up. When somebody said, what's so special about him, man? His test record is not all that great. He's played 40 games, this kind of average, hundreds. So I think in the end, the argument got closed when Sachin made a comment. He said, cricket do aankh se bhi mushkil hoti hai. So I think that put things in perspective. I think Tiger was absolutely special.
Anything, Anil?
Yeah, I think it was early 2000, 2001, 2002, and just when all the players' terms and were discussed, and we were sort of negotiating with the BCCI with regard to contracts and all of that. We got together as players and then wanted to form a players' association. And we wanted Tiger Pataudi to be the president. So both Rahul and I went to his house. Amrit facilitated that conversation. And when we went to him and then requested him, he said, why me? And typical of him, he said, no, why have you come to me? I mean, I've been retired for ages now, and what will I contribute? I said, sir, just you being a part of us itself carries a lot of weight, and we respect you, we want you to be a part of it. Okay, so when is the meeting? So I said, okay, thank you very much for accepting. And then although it's defunct at that point, because I think Mr. Dalmia, when he became the president, he ensured that the players, when we represented to him about contracts, he got it done, and that's the end of the Players Association at that point in time. But till that period, that 1.5 years, he would call. So Anil, when are we having this meeting? And what am I supposed to say to the BCCI? And what do you want me to go and represent? So he was very active, and he took, obviously, when you make him the president, he was very concerned about the players, and he would have those conversations. So that was the conversation that I had with him, and it was wonderful to have that.
I think again, I don't think people.
I know we have gone beyond our time, but one last thing about Tiger. That he was a pretty private person. I think Suresh would know, he edited an excellent book on Tiger. And he hated functions like this. When he was invited, he accepted with great reluctance after setting 2 ground rules. 1, 30 minutes, we'll go in and get out. And second ground rule, I will not speak. So had he been here and had I invited him here, he would have sort of gone by those 2 ground rules.
And the thing was, even as journalists, you had to, it's like you felt you had to be prepared to ask him a proper question. You could not call up Tiger Pataudi and ask him a stupid question. You had to actually prepare, and we didn't know what to call him.
Can you do this with Anil?
Yeah, absolutely no. SMS message first, respectfully. Laxman, any stories of Tiger Pataudi that you want to share?
Yeah, I happened to meet him in ML Jayasinghe sir's residence. Both of them were very, very close. In fact, Pataudi sir, he played for Hyderabad. And it was great to know that he was following my exploits. Under 19, when I did well against the Australia under 19, and that was the time. In fact, I met him, and then heard a lot of stories from Jayasinghe sir. And he was a prankster, is what they say. And some of the practical jokes. In fact, I'm sure a lot of you would know what happened to Vishibai. On one of his. Visits to, I think, in Rajasthan. So I think Jayasinghe sir was very, very fond, and I agree with Amrit when he says that, or Rajbhai told that, because they say that he at covers was just an unbelievable fielder. People used to come to Lal Bahadur Stadium to actually watch Patodi field at covers. You know, he was exceptional. They were just used to be like a cheetah, is what they used to say.
Sharda,
yeah.
Kiribai is here. Thank you
Yes.
very much, Kiribai. I'm sure he will have some memories of Tiger. Kiribai, thank you very much for coming. Grateful.
Good evening, everybody. Normally, I'm used to stumping guys on the field. You see, now I'm being stumped off the field by Amrit. What is that you want to ask me about?
Any memories you have of Tiger?
About Tiger?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, of course, yes, I've been a great fan of wildlife, no two ways about it. And this was a tiger which was on the field, on the cricket field, and I think very little I know about him, but I've not seen him literally play, except for that 1974, the Calcutta test where he got injured playing the West Indies. I think you're very well aware of all those things. Well, he was a brilliant fielder, no two ways about it, like a Nawab. He was, I think he was the one who I saw who brought the sliding into India. He was the only one Indian player who I saw sliding with one eye at, I think, Moinadola tournament. I don't know where Laxman was at that time. So on those bases, I think from widest mid-on, he ran. It was played at Hyderabad, right? And he chased that ball near the boundary, picked it up, turned around, and direct hit at the bowlers. And with one eye, you can imagine the fielding effort, which he was one of the best fielders who I have seen. Of course, the present era of cricketers have all got their fielding coaches, etc., and etc. And I think we are a very competent fielding side globally at the moment. So on those basis, I'm not too sure about. Of course, he was a very practical man who would have practical jokes. You know, he would. Yes, I had a wonderful trip to East Africa along with him, where Raj Singh Dungarpur late had taken all of us there. And I think one of the parties, you know, where I think it was a player which before me or during Tiger's time, I forget his name, from Hyderabad. You know, we were having a party at the poolside in one of the places in East Africa. So he casually went around with his drink and then pushed this guy into the swimming pool who didn't know how to swim. And these are the practical jokes he used to play on. And of course, as a captain who I had known a little bit of it, he would always encourage the younger talent and pick the right talented and merited players and encourage them into the Indian team. And those who I can remember, he got G.R. Vishwanath into the Indian team. He got Eknath Solkar into the Indian team, late Eknath Solkar. I think he was a very straightforward person. You know, he wouldn't let the other selection committee to get their own players into the Indian team. I think he was. I think that's all I can talk about Tiger at the moment. Thank you very much for inviting me on this launch. Yes.
Yeah, so there's about 10 minutes for questions, and the questions have to only be related to the book.
And only to Anil.
Yeah.
I thought you've written the book, Amrit. You know all the secrets.
So, how do there's at the back in the CSK t-shirt. Yeah, better. So they can see you.
Hello. Yeah. Hello, Amrit sir. My name is Karthik, and I've been a reader of your articles in the 90s in the Sports Star magazine. Yeah. So that's how I, remember the 90s. And my question is, from the 90s, as we are preparing for the 8th encounter of India versus Pakistan in an ODI World Cup, I've seen that you've been there from the first such match. So just want to hear some of your memories of the first match and any subsequent games too, because you spoke about the game where Tendulkar, scored that 98 at Centurion. So you've been there, for these World Cup games, high pressure games. How did you see the Indian team evolve over those World Cup games?
Listen, I haven't seen too many matches, but when it comes to a Pakistan game, I think there are two contradictory threads. One is, we know it's how important a game it is, it matters, and you can become a hero by performing well. So that's one side, it is a key game. The other is something which Rahul keeps mentioning every time he's asked. He said it's the same game, played with 11 players play with one bat and two batsmen and one bowler and one ball. So he's downplaying the importance, the tension of the game. But it's a key game, and each game we remember. There have been many outstanding matches. I was fortunate that I saw that Centurion game, which was an epic. So I think maybe they're in a better position to say what a Pakistan game means, not me.
I think just an extension of what Amrit mentioned. From a player's perspective, for us, it was as good as any other game. Of course, the victory mattered a lot more because of the pressure that we were all put under. Even before you travel to the World Cup, everybody who you would meet as you were embarking on the World Cup tour was, "Aap Kenya se bhi haar jao, koi baat nahi. Pakistan ko harana." So that used to be the constant sort of message given to us. And for us, I think the 1996 World Cup match here in Bangalore was certainly something very special, because we were defending a high score, 280 plus, and we had 3 bowlers from Karnataka. So there was no way that we could lose that game.
Laxman.
Yeah, so I've obviously never played a World Cup, but Pakistan, any game against Pakistan is definitely going to be having high expectations, from the people of both the countries, But I think the teams I've been part of when we played against Pakistan, whether in 2004, more so in 2004, we thought that it's any other game, because you can't be emotionally attached to the result, because once you're emotionally attached and you're putting undue pressure on yourself and letting yourself down. So there was a conscious decision in the team meetings that we are going to treat this as any other game, while the expectations from the crowd at the ground or back home will be huge. But we wanted to treat that as any other game, and that's the best way to go out and perform as a sports person.
Hi, good evening. Such a lovely throwback moment for me. He mentioned Sports Star, and this is not even the oldest poster that I have. Wow. This is the Coca-Cola Cup, 25 years to this date. Now I'm telling my son of all the stories. The question I had was about the friendship series. We talk so much about spirit of cricket and all that. How did Kapil Dev's run out of Peter Custon, how was that taken in the dressing room back then?
It was well within the rules, so I don't think there was any issue on that. It was certainly something that was not for the first time that the non-striker was taking advantage, because invariably when you batted with Jonty Rhodes, I think it was very evident that batters got used to taking off. So it was something that I think Kapil Paji had warned Peter Custon once before that in a match, and he did do what he did. He was well within the rules to do that. Of course, Kepler didn't take it lightly in the next run that he took. It was one of those, like I said, off the field we were really welcomed, but on the field it was tough cricket. We knew that when we played South Africa, and it was one of those series where we felt that the kind of quality that we faced, in South Africa, and the adjustments that we had to make for those conditions was very evident that we had to really do that. We were not used to that kind of bounce and pace in South Africa. So it was a fantastic series. Having said that, I think it was well within the rules.
Yeah, question here. And then one more on the left.
Yeah, hi, good evening. Having played across the world in multiple stadiums and meeting so many players, could you tell me a bit about your experience with the cricket infrastructure in Bangalore?
It's you. Questions have to be related to the book, sadly, only.
Yeah.
No.
Later.
Yeah, we can take it offline.
Yeah. So over there. Yeah.
Thank you. My question is around the tenure of 99 to about 2006, is where I grew up. The Indian team then had players from all across the country. You had Ganguly and Dhoni in the east, Laxman in Hyderabad, Anil and Rahul in the south, Sachin and Zaheer in the west. How did you align within the dressing room all of these different individuals and perspectives on the game so that on the field we saw one united team? You spoke about Viro's approach to fielding, for example, versus Kev's. I'm just curious how you...
So this is for Amrit?
This is for anyone.
I think well, I don't think it's an issue. From the beginning, players have come from different parts of the country and they've played together. And ultimately, they're professionals and they know their jobs and they know what is to be done for the team to together do well. So I think everybody's aligned to that bigger goal. It doesn't really matter who's speaking what language, where he's from, what background he comes from. I think it's an Indian team and they play together.
And only when you said it now, I started thinking, you never thought about it when we were playing.
Yeah, just one last question here.
Thank you. Thank you for this lovely evening. This question is to Anil, especially. This is from my little daughter. She asked me, where are you going? I said, I'm going to, attend a meeting where the book is getting released. Who is coming? Anil Kumble. Who is he? I said, he plays cricket. What does he do? He bowls. How many wickets has he taken? I don't know. I lost count. What else has he done? I said, he's the second man to win. Take 10 wickets. Okay, ask him this question. Didn't other bowlers feel bad?
Yeah, I'm sure you never sort of go into a game thinking that you're going to get all 10. You prepare for it. I'm sure all the other bowlers also prepared for it. So it's just that it was my day. And, 3 days later, 4 days later, we played the same team in a different series, which was called the Asian Test Championship in Calcutta. And I struggled to get one. So that's the way cricket is. It's like life. You win one day, you start fresh again, and it puts you back in, on the ground. So that's what it is. And I think I was probably destined to get all 10.
Okay, sorry, I've been missing one person's question. Yeah, quick question, please.
Good evening. The thing is that, could you please share your experience, dressing room experience after very, very special 281? And the second one is...
one question. Choose. One of the two you have to choose.
Okay,
Either
so
281
only
or
this one.
Okay,
that, what was the first innings reaction in the dressing room? What was the second innings
this
reaction
is to Anil
in
and
the dressing room?
Lakshman?
Yes, to Laxman.
And then after this, we will close.
Obviously, after the first innings, we were still in a terrible situation. 274 runs behind after losing the first test in 3 days' time. And we prepared really well for that series. And when we won the series, when we won the test match, I think it was probably the most satisfying moment, not only in my career, but the entire group. Because to come back from the situation we were in at the end of the second day, and to bounce back and to get the Australian batting lineup. Everyone talks about my 281 or Rahul's 180, but to get the Australians bowled out in less than 70, 75 overs on the last day on still a good surface to bat, was a remarkable achievement by all the bowlers. And I think it was a fantastic feeling. And we go back to that test match, where we learned a lot of life lessons. From that test match and that test series is like life, the game also poses a lot of challenges, but as long as you're optimistic, as long as you're positive in your thought process, you can bounce back from any situation, and that's what that test match showed and taught to all of us.
Just on that, sorry, I'll because I missed that test match. I was in South Africa doing rehab. So I was in the clinic when we were bowled out in the first innings. And Evan Speechley, who is currently the physio of RCB and also has been physio of the Indian cricket team, he was treating. And he said, what's happening? South Africans hate the Aussies. I mean, they don't like losing to Australia. And obviously he was saying, how can you lose to Australia? I said, no, we're winning this. And that day I was taking a flight back to India. And the entire day that Rahul and Laxman batted, I was on a flight. And I landed in Bombay, and at the immigration I said, what's the score? They said 500 something for 4 or 5 it was. And so both of them remained not out. So I said, we're winning this. And the one thing that I missed out watching, I got my sort of, it was not the same innings, of course, but at least I got the pleasure of watching both Laxman and Rahul, because this was in Adelaide in 2004. We were 84 for 4 when Laxman walked in. I said, I want a repeat of Calcutta here. And I got half of it, but we won the test match. They scored 300 plus, a partnership. He got 100, Rahul got a double 100. And I think, that certainly changed the way we sort of approach cricket in terms of, winning at all odds. No matter what, we're going to win this. It showed real character, and I certainly missed watching that live, especially from the dressing room.
So what you're seeing here are terrific competitors, cricketers of great dignity, of great prestige, standing, recommendation, but just great competitors. Never forget that. No matter how genteel and well-spoken they are fierce competitors. Never forget that. And Amrit's got an account of their lives and how they went about many things, many cricketers in his book. He'll be signing the book outside for a little bit. Thank you very much, Anil. Thank you very much, Laxman. Congratulations, Amrit. Thank you.
One second. Thank you, everybody, for coming today. Special thanks to Anil, VVS, Kiribhai, all my friends. It's been great to be here. Sharda, thank you very much. The entire Pratilipi team, they've been brilliant to give my random writing some kind of a shape, and to Ravi for this fantastic venue and the welcome. Thank you very much.